at Central Library. How are you all? I hope you're all well. So it's time for chapter 6 of Wizard in My Shed by Simon Farnaby, illustrated by Claire Powell and read with the kind permission of Hodder Publishers. In the last chapter, Rose and Merdyn finally met in the woods when Rose had gone out to get fish and chips, and Merdyn had proved that he was a wizard by being able to make Bubbles, Rose's guinea pig, talk. So let's find out what happens in chapter 6 now that Merdyn and Rose have finally got together. Are you ready? This one's called Horseless Carriage in My Garage. It was slow going on the main road because every time a car went past, Merdyn jumped into a hedgerow or behind a bin. "What be these foul beasts?" he wailed as he picked himself up from the floor for the 10th time. "Beasts? Aye." Another car roared past, making Merdyn leap behind a lamppost. "There be another. They have wheels instead of legs and emitteth a rancid stench from their back pipes." Rose looked at him. Now what was he on about? "Don't you have cars where you come from?" she asked. "Cars?" said Merdyn, stressing the word weirdly again. "Yeah, people use them to travel round," said Rose. "Ah, 'tis a carriage," Merdyn deduced, "but has no horses." "Horses?" Rose laughed. "No, it has an engine though. You know, you start it with a key." Said Merdyn quietly to himself. Purgatory gets stranger and stranger. A moment later, Rose's smartphone went off in her bag, playing Beyonce's Crazy in Love as usual. Looking so crazy in love, got me looking so crazy in love. "Ye gods!" cried Merdyn, slamming his hands over his ears. "What be that caterwauling?" Rose stopped walking and pulled out her phone. Her mum's face appeared on the screen. "Where's the fish and chips, love?" Susie complained immediately. Merdyn couldn't believe his eyes. He stared at the tiny woman trapped in the little black square before him. "What black magic be this?" he whispered in horror. Sorry, Mum, I got a bit delayed," said Rose, blissfully unaware of Merdyn's mounting terror. "Well, hurry up, will you? I'm starving here." "Okay, Rose had barely begun her sentence when Merdyn grabbed the phone from her hand and threw it onto the pavement with great force. The screen smashed instantly. Crack! "What? Stop!" Rose screamed. But the wizard Warlock wasn't finished yet. He jumped and he stamped on the phone for all he was worth, breaking it into tiny pieces. Then he threw himself to the ground and sifted frantically through the shattered glass and plastic with his fingers. He looked up at Rose, bemused. "Where did she go?" "Where did who go?" yelled Rose. She couldn't remember a time she'd ever been angrier. That phone was expensive. She never took it to school in case something happened to it, and now this idiot had smashed it to smithereens. "Why, the wicked witch in the box." "That was my mum. She was just at home." "Thy mother liveth in that tiny box," said Merdyn aghast. "What happened? A hex, a curse? Did she fall foul of another wicked witch?" "What? No! Stop talking about witches," said Rose. "She wasn't in the box, you idiot. It's a smartphone." "Even I knew that," Bubbles chimed in squeakishly. "And I'm a guinea pig." Merdyn looked at Rose dumbfounded. "A start phone?" "Smart phone," Rose repeated. "Start phone," he said again stubbornly. "Smart phone," Rose tried again, "and it cost a lot of money." "I told you, I have monies." Merdyn threw some more dirty pebbles at the livid Rose, which did not help. Rose threw the stones right back at him. Merdyn couldn't help pondering how odd it was that he had fought marauding murderers and crusading conjurers, but that was nothing compared to the wrath of this 12-year-old girl. She must have really liked that start phone. "This singing spell had better make me really famous," Rose yelled before picking up the broken phone pieces and putting them in her bag. They walked in silence the rest of the way to the fish and chip shop. Rose got some for herself, her mum and Chris, and her anger finally subsiding for Merdyn too. She wondered how she was going to explain her new companion. It would be okay, she figured, as long as Merdyn didn't smash Mum's phone or hog the TV or eat her chocolates. She imagined she'd be fine with a Warlock staying in the shed for a while. Though I won't say Warlock, thought Rose. I'd better say wizard. Sounds less killy. When they arrived back at Daffodil Close, Rose tiptoed down the little path between her house and Dion's garage with Merdyn behind her. "Now listen, I need to persuade my mum to let you stay for a while," she whispered. "Are you happy to sleep in there?" She pointed at the little shed in the Falveys' garden. It was a basic affair with a peeling green roof, small door and a window. "It's a paltry abode, but being in hell, I suppose I cannot expect a castle," said Merdyn. Yeah, exactly," said Rose, "so just wait here." Inside the house, Rose found her mum exactly where she'd left her. The talent show had finished and she was watching a documentary about Marilyn Monroe. "You took your time," Susie said, barely looking up. "Oh, I bumped into someone," said Rose. Now Susie looked up. "I thought I heard another voice when I called you. Who was it?" "Not a stranger. What did I tell you about talking to strangers?" "He's not a stranger," said Rose. "Well, he's quite strange and kind of full of himself, but he's nice at heart, I think. Well, I'm not sure about that, but the thing is, he's a..." "Spit it out, Rose," said her mum impatiently. "He's a wizard," Rose managed finally. Susie was so shocked she even paused the documentary about Marilyn Monroe. Outside, Merdyn saw Rose's next-door neighbour, Dion, emerging from the side door of his garage, having finished tinkering with his beloved car for the night. Dion jumped out of his skin when he saw Merdyn, but he didn't want to get in a conversation with an extra from Lord of the Rings, so he just nodded and dashed into the house. As he did so, Merdyn saw something drop from his pocket and lie among the paving stones, shining in the moonlight. Merdyn liked shiny things, so he bent down to pick it up. It was a small black box. As Merdyn studied it, pressing and prodding, he heard a muffled noise from inside the garage. "Meow, meow." The clever reader, which I think we have already established you are, will recognise this sound as the noise made when unlocking a car remotely, but to Merdyn it sounded like a bird call. Being a curious type, the Warlock opened the little door of the garage and he went in. Once inside, he could see that it wasn't a bird at all, but a car. Since Roses had explained that they were just horseless carriages, Merdyn wasn't scared of them anymore. In fact, he found this carriage rather beautiful. It had a picture of a huge eagle on the front, and the moonlight streaming through a window made it gleam like a giant gemstone. Merdyn ran his hand down its sides. So shiny, so smooth, so cold. He noticed a handle and instinctively pulled it, and a door popped open. The leather seat inside looked very inviting, so he sat in it. There was a round thing in front of him. Weird earth. Why have a wheel inside a carriage? Then he remembered Rose saying something about a key. Could the silver shard chained to the little black box be a key? Merdyn held it up in front of his face. "'Tis a small and dainty key, but a key nonetheless," he thought. "Now, where does it go?" In the lounge, Rose was still fending off questions from her irate mum. "You met a vagrant in the woods and you want him to live in the shed. Have you gone completely potty?" "But Mummy can do magic. He made Bubbles talk. Listen." Rose pressed the pine cone against her guinea pig's head. There was a long silence. "Come on, Bubbles. I couldn't shut you up 5 minutes ago," Rose begged. Bubbles just stared at her with vacant eyes. "He was talking earlier," Rose told her mum, smiling desperately. This was going to be even worse than she'd expected. Suddenly, the possibility that she would soon have a magic singing spell and transform everyone's lives for the better seemed very remote. Rose's mum had seen Rose do some eccentric things in her time, but this behaviour was on another level. "I knew this would happen," she said, shaking her head. "You've gone mad. I've read about it. This can happen to children who've suffered sudden changes." Rose was about to interject when they were interrupted by the sound of a revving car engine. Vroom, vroom. It was an odd noise. Dion never revved the engine of the Pontiac Firebird so loudly. He knew that such high revs per minute would damage the pistons. Was this something to do with Merdyn? No sooner had this worrying thought entered Rose's head than it was confirmed. She heard a crank of gears followed by a loud explosion that sounded not unlike a car crashing through a garage door. Smash! Rose and her mum rushed to the front window just in time to see Dion's beloved $100,000 Pontiac Firebird hurtling backwards across the road, swerving and snaking and screeching as it went. As it whizzed past, Rose glimpsed Merdyn at the wheel, looking sick and screaming at the top of his lungs. The car swerved one last time, then thumped into a lamppost. Crunch! The boot, or trunk as they called it in America, crumpled up like an accordion. 2 seconds later, Dion's front door flew open. The postie had bare feet and he was wearing nothing but a dressing gown. He'd been in the bath watching Titanic on his iPad when he'd heard the car fire up. Now he was pelting across the road, leaving foamy bubbles in his wake, screaming, "My car! My beautiful car!" He reached the car wrap lamppost and yanked open the driver's door. Merdyn, who looked very green, was instantly sick all over Dion's poor legs. "What the... Oh my God, that's it. I'm calling the police," Dion screamed. Rose and her mum watched the whole thing unfold like a car crash, from behind the window of their front room. Eventually, Susie turned to Rose. "Is that your wizard by any chance?" she said. "Actually, he's more of a warlock," replied Rose meekly. A phone and now a car, crushed like a toy. How many more things could Merdyn destroy? Probably quite a lot. Join me next time for chapter 7, which is called Broken Cars and Long Lost Stars. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Goodbye.